In this video, we will look at some of the impacts humans have had on water, looking at surface pollution, marine pollution, and groundwater pollution. Keep in mind that all of Earth's water is connected in one large cycle. This cycle connects the deepest oceans to the atmosphere, to surface water to groundwater, and water is always cycling through here as we studied in earth science. Fresh water is very rare on our planet compared to um, the oceans. Oceans make up 97% of our water. Fresh water is 2.5%. Of that 2.5%, only 1% is present as surface water. Much of the rest is captured in groundwater or in the glaciers. Of that surface water, a fifth of it is in lakes, 70% of it is in ground ice and permafrost, especially in the Arctic tundra, and eventually small percentage is locked up in rivers, living things, and the atmosphere. We'll be taking a brief look at three types of water pollution: surface water, marine or ocean pollution, and groundwater. Surface water is often contaminated by nutrient runoff. These nutrients are often contain nitrogen and phosphorus, which for plants and photosynthetic bacteria are crucial for growth. However, when present in too high of a concentration, they can pose significant ecological risks. These nutrient pollutions can come from cities, farms, stormwater drainage, or even aquaculture, which is when you farm fish. What happens? When there are too many or too much nutrients, you get what's called eutrophication. Eutrophication is an algal bloom, which causes algae, so photos photosynthetic bacteria and microscopic plants, to bloom. This is the Sea of Azov near Ukraine, which can go to the bloom is so big it is visible from space. And this becomes a problem because these algae can outcompete other plants, larger plants in particular, for oxygen and sunlight, causing significant ecological changes. And also, as these algae die and begin to decompose, can cause what's called a dead zone, or an area of depleted oxygen in the water, especially in marine areas. We'll look at that in a brief moment. So this is one way surface water is contaminated, is when there's too much nutrients and causes an algal bloom. Marine pollution, that is ocean, can be caused from sewage and industrial wastes along the coastline, or also from pollutants carried downstream through rivers. Plastic has become a major marine pollution, and we will look at that too. To return to dead zones, we saw how in inland lakes they can cause giant algal blooms. They can cause the same thing in the ocean, only on much larger scales. And when these algae die and sink to the bottom, the decomposers use up all the available oxygen, breaking down these plants. This hypoxic condition, meaning no available oxygen in the water, causes die-offs for lobsters, shrimps, clams, and other invertebrates that live in the bottom layers of the water column. Fish can also get caught in this dead zone. This has caused massive fishery die-offs, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, where people who harvest shrimp have reportedly had to go further out to catch fewer numbers of shrimp due to seasonal dead zones that have wiped out the coastal fisheries. This is not just a problem in the United States, but a problem across the globe. Every red area is a known dead zone. The black dots are dead zones that have been observed but not measured for how large they are. So they happen across the Gulf of Mexico, the eastern seaboard, the Pacific Northwest, but also in Europe along the Baltic Sea and in the northern shores of Ireland. They happen as well along the Korean Peninsula and China. These happen wherever major rivers hit or meet the ocean, carrying a large nutrient load. Another major problem that the oceans are facing is from plastics. This is another video that I will link to on the course website, detailing how severe this problem is. Every bit of plastic ever made is still on our planet, either in landfills or floating through the oceans. So please check that video out too. Lastly, I want to look at groundwater. Groundwater is a very important resource because this is often where people outside of cities draw their water from. The water table can take days, years, centuries, and millennia to recharge itself and also to move pollutants through it and out away from them. Groundwater can be polluted a number of ways. Some of it is naturally occurring. There are some naturally occurring minerals and materials that can poison the groundwater. But much more common is if there is an on-site sanitation system, like a septic tank, and runoff from sewage, fertilizers, and pesticides that, instead of running off into the nearest creek or riverbed, sink through the ground into the ground's water. It's an important thing when you talk about groundwater, we do not mean an underground lake or river. We're talking about just saturated rocks beneath the soil layer. We can also have commercial and industrial leaks, such as at Superfund sites, which are highly contaminated industrial sites, but even from a local laundromat that has a leaky drain can pollute the water table underneath it. Hydraulic fracturing, that is fracking, is a major source of groundwater pollution, although this is hotly contested by proponents of fracking. Because in this situation, they are intentionally forcing pollutants deep underground, and their goal is to do it where their water table is sealed off from higher water tables that are used for drinking, although there's strong evidence to suggest that their precautions are ineffective. And landfill leachate simply means pollutants leaking out of a landfill. Even though landfills are now place a impermeable a membrane beneath them designed to keep all the liquids in, these can rupture and allow materials to seep into the groundwater beneath the landfill and then move downhill and downstream. This is difficult pollution to treat because it's not visible until it is pumped up and now often for residential use. And once it is identified, it's very difficult to treat, and oftentimes you may just have to drill a new, deeper well or import water from somewhere else. So in summary, water is constantly moving through our planet. Most of that water is locked up in the oceans where it can stay for hundreds of years, even millennia, before cycling out into the atmosphere or another area. Only a tiny percentage of fresh water is available for our use. Much of it is locked away in groundwater and the glaciers. Water can be polluted on the surface by runoff, which can cause eutrophication, and this eutrophication can then flow downstream and cause a dead zone in the oceans or gulfs. Industrial and sewage waste can also pollute the marine area, as well as plastic that is blown away or disposed of improperly. While there is much to do and it's very challenging to know what to do with all this water pollution, it's vital we do, especially with the plastic problem, as this is having a huge impact on our ocean ecologies. Remember to check out the video on plastics that I posted next to this, and I will see you guys at the next lecture.